The one tip I give all agents on that is we make this mistake as agents. We're like, I'd like the best photographer, and we'll ask a Facebook group or a group of agents in our city, who's the best photographer for under $150?
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't ask the two things at once. Like the two things don't coexist.
Yeah.
You can't ask for someone who's the best, who does something that really stands out and not wanting to exchange value for it. So I would just argue to agents that if you're going to do video, you're going to go through this process of doing it all, do a little bit more, go a little bit further.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This show is for entrepreneurs who want to play bigger in business and in life. And today you guys are all in for a treat. I have a very special guest who I've always known from afar, but finally really got to connect when I spoke at an event in Vancouver, Canada. And that's the power of events. I always believe that live events change lives, and he is such a powerhouse in this industry. His videos are in a class of their own. His YouTube channel has over 45,000 subscribers, and he's one of the top attractors in the world. I'm excited to have this conversation, so get ready because he's going to drop massive fire. Welcome to the show, Brad McCallum.
Oh my gosh, Raquel, thank you so much for having me here. That is a really high bar. And I'm like, who? I want to see this guest that you're talking to. I didn't realize you were talking to me at first, but I'm so excited to be here. And obviously a big fan of yours, Raquel. Like meeting you a couple of weeks back in Vancouver, it's clear to see why you're so successful and why so many people love you. I'm just privileged to be here. Thanks.
Well, if you ever want to hire a PR person, I'm kidding.
Yes. So that is actually like the biggest thing that I try to do in my life. I heard once Ryan Serhant talk about how his goal with his media and everything was to basically build a mountain, the highest mountain, and then stand on top of it with the loudest megaphone and shout about his clients' homes, their interests, whatever it was. So the people in his world, he wanted to be the biggest advocate for it. And that made so much sense to me. And I think that's where I think a lot of agents that I see that have been successful in this industry, they've found some way to build some sort of an audience and shout about the people that they care about, that they're partnered with, that their clients, what their needs are, all of that stuff. And so that's what I've been trying to do from day one, is just build a little bit of a place where I could be a champion for those people.
And I think you've done a really good job. Matter of fact, I think you're one of the best when it comes to videos, and you've been known for videos. So let's just take it back. How did you get started for those that don't know who you are?
Okay, yeah. I would assume that's most of the audience. The people that wouldn't know who I am are the people maybe seen some of my videos. The real story is I was about 38 years old at the time, about just over 7 years ago. And I had a renovation and design business. I was always really creative. I really enjoyed like creating the 3D renderings and the layouts for homes and additions and kitchens and all that stuff. But our city had went through a really difficult recession, the second recession in a period of 10 years. And our market was tough. I had young children, and I just felt like I was just up against a wall. Like I wasn't making any progress in my life. I was worried about whether or not I was ever going to provide my family the future that they were looking for. And then at the same time, I had a little like a little bump on my cheek. And I'd noticed that it was slowly getting a little bit bigger over a month or two. And so I did a little online research, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. It looks like maybe it's like I don't know. There's like a little growth that can grow on some people there. And so I finally booked an appointment with the doctor, go into the doctor, and the doctor's, Brad, why haven't you been taking this more seriously? And I was like, was I supposed to? I don't know. I've just been busy with work and life. And he's like, do you know the Beastie Boys? And I'm like, yeah, I know the Beastie Boys. And he's like, do you remember Adam MC? And I was like, I think so. And he died of something called parotid gland cancer. And you have a tumor in your parotid gland. And I need you to go wherever you can in the city that will see you and take a biopsy today. And we're going to need to rush you into surgery in the next few weeks. And I went out to my car and I just wept. I was like, what am I doing? I ended up getting the surgery. All was good, clean bill of health, all that, no problem since. But it was just at this moment where it felt like my business was failing. Maybe my health was starting to fail. And my son was starting kindergarten. And I was like, I'm I didn't get even my high school education. I didn't get my GED or anything like that. I'm like, I got to make a change. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go in real estate because it felt like the only thing that I could do in the background while I still ran my little renovation company. And I could maybe in the evenings and weekends try to work myself out of this rut. I got my real estate license. I quickly was realizing that I didn't have really any reason for anyone to work with me. Like, why would you want to work with this guy? And I knew I was in a community that was really well serviced by a couple of great agents that seemed to have had really strong geo farms. And they just, everyone knew them and they'd sold every home on every block and they'd been in every home on every block. And I was like, I need something to help me stand out. I'd had an opportunity to list my father's property. He had bought it right before I got my license. And about 6 months in, he was about to flip it. And as we got closer to the date, he just started ghosting me, not calling me back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Is my dad potentially going to work with another agent? So I call him up and he says, Brad, it's just a lot of money for your mom. And I really got to think about like our own financial future and stuff. And so we need to go with someone who's an expert because we just can't afford to lose anything. And I was struggling. I was like, oh my gosh, what was like the lowest of the low for me. I'm like, if I don't get my own dad's listing, I'm going to be like, all of my friends and family are going to be like, dad doesn't trust him. So why would we trust him? And so I'd been watching a lot of YouTube at the time, and just because I was a creative guy and I liked some of the storytellers like Casey Neistat and some of the really cool cinematic creators, like different people on there that were just making really cool videography. And I thought, oh, this would be super fun. Like I would love to learn how to do that. But I was on that phone with my dad. I'm like, Dad, I'm going to make a really great video for you. I'd never done it, of course, didn't have any of the equipment. But I was like, if you let me do this, I'm going to market your home in a way no one's ever seen it. And he was just like, no, I'm not interested in that. He's like a farmer from Saskatchewan, did not see, like many people didn't see in back in 2017 or 2018, like the power of what video marketing could do. I just threatened him to never see the grandkids again and got the listing. And that was how it worked for me. But what I realized though was like I needed to start focusing. I was upset at first, but then now, like this day and even going forward, I became very grateful because I realized, like, as agents, just nothing is deserved. And I think right now, with the NAR settlement and everything that's going on, there is this sense of something's being taken away from us. And I would argue that nothing's really being taken away that was really and truly ours in the first place. And so it's on each of us each and every day to figure out why someone would want to work with us. And so I think most new agents, they ask questions of like, how do I get more leads? How do I get more business? Where's my next transaction coming from? And a lot of them are just kind of fighting for survival like I was. But I started asking a much better question that day when I got the opportunity to list that property and do the marketing. I started to think, wait, what's in it for the people that work with me? And then I just woke up every day and I worked on the answer to that question. And I did a really cool video for that house. I bought all the gear. I didn't try to do it with my iPhone. I didn't call a videographer to do it for $250 in the city and try to get them to do it for as cheap as possible. And I was like, no, I'm going to buy the gear. I'm going to teach myself how to do this stuff. I want to be able to create something that stands out. And it worked. And so I started doing those videos myself. The first 3.5, 4 years, the first probably 100 videos on my channel are all shot and edited by me. If I'm on camera, it was a little like a construction worker, laborer guy that I had that was just like, I would tell him like, walk from here to there and then follow me as you go, keep me in the middle of the frame. Sometimes my wife would come out and she'd hold the camera and my daughter would be playing in the basement or something of this house. And it was just like, we just, by hook or by crook, we found some way to get it done. And I would go home and I would make these videos and it was super fun. And if you're a creative person at all, like most people that are creative, like you want to share it. So I was sharing it on Facebook. I put it on Facebook and I found all of a sudden, all the questions that I was worried about people asking me, people just stopped asking. They no longer ask, hey, have you ever had a listing before? Or hey, have you ever sold in this price bracket before? Or what's going on with the market? All of a sudden, if I was on camera, that people mistake everyone who's on the other side of a screen with having authority. It's just if we see someone walking around in a lab coat talking about something to do with our health, we're just like, we don't even think that it's maybe a paid actor. We're like, no, like that person,
Right.
they must be an expert. And so I was finding that at open houses very early on, people would walk in and be like, oh my gosh, you're that guy from the video. Not, oh my gosh, you're like an agent for 7 months and have no clue what you're doing and
Yeah.
have no system to record my email and follow up with me or anything. So instead, they were just reaching back out and wanting to work with me because they somehow mistook me being in the video with me being an authority. And I realized, then had to realize in my second year in real estate that the most important thing to do as a salesperson is to stop selling when someone's already sold, when they've already agreed to work
Yeah.
with you and they want to work with you. And I was so shocked. I was the last person usually to figure out in a transaction that a client wanted to work with me as their buyer's agent or their seller's agent. I would continue to sell to them and I could see, I'm like, oh, I'm losing this and it was mine. I should just shut up and talk about next steps because they don't really care about me. They just want someone they can trust to go work for them. So as soon as I realized that people would have me over and the first thing they would say is, okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Like this is, as I'm meeting them, they're like having me over to look at their house, do a listing presentation. I'd show up at the door and they're like, okay, we love your videos. We're thinking like, what if the drone came down and went through the house and came out our back doors and you could see the view. And that was like the way the video started. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to leave my listing presentation to the side and let's just talk about next steps. And so it was just so self-reinforcing. And because I was sharing it on sites like Facebook, I quickly met a creative community of agents. Like agents are such great canaries in the coal mine for what's next, what's going to happen. Oftentimes agents see something that's cool or unique in marketing before even your own market does.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will share it and they'll be like, hey, they'll drop something in a Facebook group, like, lab coat agents or real estate mastermind or some of these different ones. So I got to meet some other agent creators in 2018 and 2019, got to know them. And because I think I had something of value to offer, I was able to quickly scale my business upward because they would ask me questions and then I could be like, okay, cool. I helped you. Here's what I'm wondering. What CRM do you use? Do you have any like processes? Like how do you run a business? I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Like when did you hire your
Yeah.
first agent? And so it was like having something I think to offer, which made me feel okay to ask questions and take something from the community as well. And then everyone's been super supportive. Like
Yeah.
they've been really supportive of me as it's went. And so that's a little bit how I got started with it. And
Well,
yeah.
there's a lot of gems and nuggets in all those stories, and how I'm actually very impressed that you were self-taught and did everything from the
Oh,
creation to the editing to acquiring your first listing to go build a business, right? So now 100 videos plus,
yeah.
right? How have you refined your systems? What is your system when it comes to creating video content for your brand?
Yeah, we always wanted to have a very simple and easy to understand value proposition for our clients.
Yeah.
So at a listing presentation, I would almost never talk about what all the typical services that a realtor would provide. So I would
Mhm.
say, listen, obviously you're looking for professional measurements and photography and negotiation skills. You're looking for great communication and continual updates on your property. You're looking for someone to skillfully handle the deals and the paperwork and all those things. But I'm not going to trump all those things up and say, oh, we're going to also put on a lockbox and we're going to also put on. These are standard levels, minimum levels of service that I would expect that you would be wanting from any potential agent that would come here. So I'd much rather spend my time, if you don't mind, talking about the things that differentiate our service. And
Mhm.
so what we would do was we would offer a listing video on every one of our properties, and then we would offer listing like short form videos, both on YouTube and Instagram, and then of course now TikTok. Basically, the promise was always if the reason for sale by owners don't really work is because of just there's not enough exposure, not enough people know about them. There's no sort of big platform that gives them the exposure they need to tap into that pool of buyers. Then what I like to do is I wanted to create something that would increase the exposure of the MLS. So that now all of a sudden you have even more exposure to people who are searching for real estate here in Calgary through YouTube, who are possibly finding it and talking about it through social media. Maybe they're sharing it with a sister or a friend or a coworker that's looking in that area. Our thought is this, is that as realtors, ultimately at the end of the day, we have limited levers we can pull. I just want to make sure that we pull everyone, that we
Mhm.
do everything that we can on our side. So when it comes time to pick that offer out of the multiple offers, we're not relying on just 10 offers because it's a hot market. Maybe we got 13 because we literally did 3 times the work to get all the media out there and get as much exposure as possible. But at least that way, that when you accept that offer, that the realtor has done everything they could to make as much exposure come through. For us, when we think of our content now, we think about each property as being an opportunity to create multiple pieces of content from. So first off, we get our long form video. Oftentimes, it provides us content that we can then do highlight in short form videos on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. So we have a sort of a keystone piece of content on YouTube that functions as our full tour. And then we have those little micro pieces, but then we also do some hype stuff around it, some like fun little edits. The goal is that every couple of weeks to reintroduce the property to our pool of potential followers. And then we, of course, we have an email database that we find that when we share the videos and some of that marketing into it, makes it just a little bit more, it gets a little bit more entertaining for them to open up one of our emails than just a completely text-based email. Though if you talk to Sharon, he'd say text works really great. For us, it's just, we found this way that I wanted people, if they thought the MacKellum group, they thought media. They thought the MacKellum group, they thought exposure, social media, video, YouTube, because that was the thing that I was actually good at. I was never going to win against those agents that had those incredible geo farms, that had been doing it for 20 years, that had all that experience. So I thought, why am I going to try to, I'm not going to compete at their game. Right. I'm going to take my one strength and go as strong as possible. When we look at our videos and when I'm helping other agents learn to do what they have, I break the video shoot down to three steps or 4 steps, I would say. There's the on-camera portion. There is the wide angle portion. There is the telephoto portion. So the wide angle is like, this is everything looks beautiful and gorgeous. And if you use good equipment and stuff, you can do a really good job these days. An iPhone can do an amazing job of a listing video. Then I use the close-up. So those are those detail shots, those like moments where if you were sitting at the dining room table and you're looking at a vase and you're looking across the room and everything's dreamy and pretty and it's just one thing is capturing your eye, those moments where you almost are picturing yourself there versus taking in a big wide angle, we include some of those as well. We include music that is never really corporate. We're always looking for something that's fun. These days, you can use trending audio and all that sort of stuff, but we always would use Music Bed or some of the different sites for that provide you like license-free music. So music that you're allowed to use on your different platforms. And then once we have that sort of that script or that basic process of like we go and we do those shoots, I spend about an hour or two. Sometimes I have a little bit more of a script in place. Most of the time, it's completely just off the cuff because I have that experience with construction. I know how to speak about buildings and all that stuff and design. But I would say one of the things that we do for like when agents are thinking about how they should talk about a property, one of the most important things now is to just think about how are you keeping attention. Yeah. And so you can have a beautiful property, but you need to bake into your tour a very high energy or very important or almost like you need to either create tension or excitement in the first 5 or 10 seconds visually and with some sort of hook that communicates to the audience what the value is for them if they're to give a little bit more of their precious time to keep watching. Yeah. And so maybe you buy 30 or 45 seconds. And if you can usually get people to a minute and a half, they'll stay for a 10-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute video. But 40% of your audience will leave in the first 30 seconds. So all of a sudden, if you can optimize how you edit that, your words, your hook, your energy, something to even take that 40% drop in audience to just a 30% drop, that 10% that hangs on longer now has on a video that gets, say, even just 10,000 views, that could be another 10,000 minutes of watch time. It could be 30,000 minutes of watch time if they watch an extra 2 or 3 minutes. And during that time, they're building their know and trust in you. They're starting to feel connected to you. Oftentimes, it might lead to more video views. And you never know where they're coming from. It might not be as direct as, oh, saw a listing tour, bought the house. It could be as like, we're thinking of selling, saw a listing tour. I want to work with an agent that's working that hard for his clients. Or it could be that house isn't for us, but we do need someone to help guide us through the process of either selling or buying. This person has already communicated that they put their clients first, that feeling that they're doing a little bit more, standing out in some way. And then it generates the leads that we want. But it comes down to just that basic understanding of, okay, if I'm going to make this video, I have to consider just a little bit about what YouTube wants from me and then what the viewer wants from me before I have an opportunity to ever even consider what I want. And so that's why what I want is everyone to know I'm a realtor and you should call me, but I don't even say my name in the videos. I don't. What I've found is that for years, like in the first few years, I was like many agents are interested in search engine optimization. They're interested in Facebook leads. And almost all of the conventional wisdom is that you will have people just continually wanting to, they'll just, as soon as they have to take more than one action, click on something or enter their email or whatever it is, as soon as they have to take one or two actions, they will leave and you'll never capture their information. Right. That's why Facebook leads where it autofills are usually super low quality, but you get more of them because the person really didn't have to take any steps.
Yeah.
But what I've found is that if you create a brand and you create content, like people, if you want to get in touch with Glenda Baker, you're going to go down a rabbit hole trying to find out how can I message her? What's her email? What's her cell phone? Does it go directly to her phone or does it go to an operations manager on her team? Yeah. People that become fans of your work, all of a sudden, all the conventional wisdom doesn't apply. They will watch your video and be like, okay, I'm going to scroll down and look at the description underneath the YouTube video. I'm going to click on that link. I'm going to find his phone number or find his email, and I'm going to reach out to him. And those extra steps are psychologically binding them closer and closer to you and your brand and your team at each step of the way, because they're taking actions that otherwise they wouldn't have done. So it's the opposite of cold calling and door knocking. It's them calling and door knocking you because they're the ones trying to find you. And it's a really cool flip of the
dynamic
switch.
Yeah. So speaking of videos and like leads, what do you think are the most top performing videos that you've seen that have captured probably the most clients in your opinion?
Yeah. You know what? We did a video last year called Moving to Calgary. And it was a very simple video. And most of my channel was fully built on just house tours. I like filming beautiful luxury home tours, but at a time where affordability is a real issue, it's actually our affordable homes that are also still pretty nice that can get massive views because people are so excited by it. And usually that's where the opportunity lies in the market for an agent who's creating content is we all want to film the $2 or $3 million amazing home that maybe goes viral or something like that. But what's wild though, the opportunity is that first off, everyone wants to create that content. So it's much more noisy for agents trying to compete at that part of the market. But the agent that goes all out and can really showcase a property in the affordable range, they do a whole bunch of things at the same time. Not only are they speaking to a much broader audience, they're then also speaking to an audience of people that aren't usually marketed to at that high of a level. They see this and there's this immediate sense of professionalism. There's this connection to this person really values all of their clients. They give the same representation to a $300,000 townhome as they do a $3 million luxury home. There's so much that's being communicated in that. And there's almost no competition there because most people are focused, most agents are focused on trying to build the big thing or being, associated with the big luxury home. And it gets harder and harder. So I always believe in like, just compete where there's no competition, find your little edge, go all in. Like it's kind of Gary Vee style, forget your weaknesses, hire against your weaknesses, and then really go all in on that little 2% that you're better than 98% of the world at.
Yeah.
Like stretch the lead out there. Whether or not it's property tours like Tyler Hassman, who does amazing short form videos and who's helped a lot of other agents get that. I think it's cool, but it's highly competitive at that stage of the market. I just always had to take care of my family. So every piece of content I made those first 3 or 4 years was like, how will this potentially relate back to a commission or a client? So I never had the privilege of creating like dancing videos on TikTok or pointing at interest rates or any of that stuff. And nothing wrong with that. I just didn't have that because it wasn't clear how it served my clients that I was working with. So I wanted to always be in service of them. And so I never really followed the trends. I found the thing that worked for me, kept doing that. The one thing that I would say that I wish I would have done sooner is the thing that I think almost all agents should do first. And that is create like a moving to or a pros versus cons or the 5 best and 5 worst things about living in my city. And what it is you can go to a website like Google and you can type in your city's name plus real estate. And if you
Mhm.
scroll down halfway through the search results, you'll find questions people ask. And it'll be like 5 questions that's Google saying is like, hey, when people are thinking of Calgary real estate, they ask the following questions.
Yeah.
One of those following questions, like that we researched earlier this week, is Calgary still a good place to live?
Mm,
So if I'm doing research for a video,
mhm.
what better market research could I get than what Google is telling me people are thinking about when they think about real estate in Calgary?
Yeah.
Because we've had a big uptick in prices in the last 6 months. We were really affordable 6 to 9 months ago, not as much now. We're having massive immigration into our city. Everyone was like, it was a good place, but is it still a good place? So for me, I'm letting the market dictate the content. And
Yeah.
so making a video last year, 6 or 8 months ago, called Moving to Calgary, we had 100 families a day moving into our city. And because of that, every one of those people, so many of them were from outside of our province. And so they're just doing research. They're doing as much research as possible, a lot more than just the MLS. They want to know about jobs, population, opportunity, weather, all the different things. So instead of just making a video in a category that I had not made one in the past, where there were other videos in our city, I
Mhm.
was like, I want to make something that brings the same sort of quality of cinematography and storytelling and imagery to moving to Calgary like we would one of our high-end home tours. But more than that, I want to take like a lesson from like a Mr. Beast and from some of these others to say, okay, let's keep this 100% quick, like all facts, all values. So if you only watch 13 seconds, you learn something. At any point in the video, you're like, okay, I know something more now about this city. And I will layer in little elements of my story as well. If we're talking about the economy, I can say something as simple as when we moved here 21 years ago, we found that there was always opportunity. And even in the ups and in the downs. And so Calgary does have some ups and downs being an oil gas. And I could then go into the stat, but those
Yeah.
little sentences or two, by the end of that video, people felt like, okay, this is a relatable family. They have the same concerns and worries that I have,
Yeah.
and they've been able to manage it. I'm not trying to convince people to move to Calgary, but I'm trying to convince them that if they want to move to Calgary, like they understand. And so I talk about the negatives, I talk about the positives, but I champion my city.
Yeah.
Now,
By the way, I watched
yes,
that video and
yeah,
it made me think, should I buy something in Calgary
right?
instead of Vancouver?
I would love to buy in Vancouver, but the reality
Right.
is it's so hard, right?
Right.
One of the things that we did with that video, I think that worked really well is it's a 13 or 14-minute video,
Mhm.
and we tell those little stories. I was able to chop it up into 10 or 12 parts on Instagram and release each one of those videos. So I had a
Series.
bunch of
Mhm.
content for TikTok, a bunch of content for Instagram. I had the Moving to Calgary video. And what was so many of those videos get made in a set like this, like someone's in their home studio talking about Calgary and they're playing B-roll and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. And I could afford to invest into it. So I probably did. Now, I would have paid in hindsight $50,000 to make that video because we've done probably $300,000 of GCI just off that one video. It's brought in so much work. But one of the things that we did because we were out and around the city and shot it in 20 different locations is it's pretty hard to not associate with me as an ambassador that knows the city. You're seeing me walking downtown and through suburbs and out in Banff, and you're seeing me all around the city. You're seeing the city portrayed beautifully. But the other thing is it hit a different algorithm. It wasn't just people looking for real estate or people looking to search for Calgary because we invested in making it really high quality. And it wasn't about me, it was about the city.
Mhm.
It hit the tourism algorithm. And
Mm.
so all of a sudden, like this video fell in line with sort of the same goals that Tourism Alberta had, or people that were looking
Yeah.
at visiting Alberta. And so YouTube started to share it around when people were looking at about like just traveling to Alberta or vacationing in Alberta. It was like our video was being suggested by all of them. And now that video has been watched without one view being promoted, maybe 215,000 times for an average of 5.5 minutes per view. So it's probably 1.1 million minutes of time.
That's amazing.
which is
So
wild.
that is wild. So here's what I want to know is because you do so much video and you're really good at storytelling, is what are some of your favorite, and I'm sure the audience would love to know if they're either listening to this or they're watching this on YouTube, is what are some of your favorite tools and apps when it comes to video?
Yeah, so I think one of the coolest tools that I've had somewhere around here actually is I really like using my iPhone for video. And I found one of the coolest tools for an agent to just use. It's super simple. It is a Insta360 gimbal. And so this Insta360 gimbal, what's cool about it is it will make you into a fantastic cinematographer in seconds. One of the hardest things to do is to get really smooth video. Now, the phones these days, they have internal processing so you can walk around and it stabilizes your video a little bit. And that's cool. But I would just always argue, once again, like the thing that's easiest is easiest not just for you, it's easiest for all your competition. And so there's going to be the most competition where it's easiest. I I feel like that like CapCut and all this stuff is amazing and it's simple and it's easy to use. I don't think an agent really needs to go and learn Adobe Premiere or all those other things. I think having a really great light and a really great studio backdrop is something that all agents should have now, whether it's for bomb videos, Loom videos, Zoom meetings, whatever it is. There's no reason in this day and age to not invest $250, get a light, a softbox, and some kind of 4K camera to film you so you have the opportunity to absolutely show up for that job interview looking a little bit better, a little bit more prepared than everyone else. Now, ironically, today my camera for some reason is not working, but normally one of the things that is always that I've been noted for is on Zoom meetings, people are like, wow, how is your camera quality so good, right? Like they're
Right.
always curious. And it's that first impression that just remember, if you're a newer agent, you just want to get to the part where you're working on their needs, not trying to prove your worth. I think having a little studio set up, even if you're just living in a little apartment condo, something like that, find some little spot, get some nice lighting on your face, go near a window if you don't have the lighting to begin with, and just set a little bit of a decoration up. And when your office is properly set up, you can have little signs about who you are. Now my office is not properly set up right now, but I have some guitars in the background, and it's amazing. Like I used to in my old office, I had a guitar hanging on the wall, and so many people asked about it. And if they
Mm-hmm.
weren't musicians, they never asked about it. They didn't care about it. They
Right.
didn't think about it. They thought maybe it was cool or something like that. But people who were, they were like, "Oh my gosh, is that a Gretsch White Falcon?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." And so what I found was just you have all these opportunities to showcase who you are
Yeah.
and to let people get to know you in a very subtle way without selling or anything.
Yeah.
Are you really using them? So for me, I think Instagram stories is like the tool that I use to let people in the sort of the daily uncut raw version of
Yeah.
my life. I use my feed to show the more polished version of what we can provide our clients and hopefully some value for who we are. We do that with one good 4K camera, some good lighting. I have a little gimbal that I can go and capture some of my own content when I'm out with that little Insta360. Why the value of something like that is that it's just got AI software where you can just highlight, say, something in the room, and then you walk around with it and it just adjusts and stays stable for you. So it makes you look like a professional videographer. But as for the tools these days now, I've got a full-time videographer and he knows all the tools. He has the FPV drones and all the stuff and he's far better videographer than me and editor than me because he gets to do it all the time. And I would say the one tip I give all agents on that is we make this mistake as agents. We're like, I'd like the best photographer, and we'll ask a Facebook group or a group of agents in our city, who's the best photographer for under $150? And it's
Yeah.
like, you can't ask the two things at once. Like the two things don't
Yeah.
coexist.
Yeah.
You can't ask for someone who's the best, who does something that really stands out and not wanting to exchange value for it. So I would just argue to agents that if you're going to do video, you're going to go through this process of doing it all, do a little bit more, go a little bit further. And
Yeah.
so my videographer, I'm sure there's videos for us that by the time it's all said and done, it cost me $1,800 for a video where my split after the home sells is 2,800 bucks and I'm making a grand. I don't really care because we're
Yeah.
getting so much other business from it.
Yeah, speaking of so much other business, you've used video to basically attract your consumers, your clients, and then you've used video to build your brand. How have you leveraged video for agent attraction? Because you're one of the best, like I said, when it comes to agent attraction in the world, and super proud to be partners with you. Is how have you used all of this for agent attraction?
So I had this philosophy very early on with maybe some of the other cloud-based brokerages out there that seemed like they were maybe a little bit, or at least for me, my experience was it seemed like they were a little bit more focused on recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized I had this epiphany when I realized, wait, all brokerages, pre-revenue share model brokerages, were built not by the brokers, not even by their brands, but it was usually by the reputations of some of the top agents that were in that office. And so, why did that work so well? Why did those agents attract agents to those brokerages? And why did some of these offices grow to being 100, 200 people? It was because people saw, wow, that person has a business that I'd like to emulate. They sell a lot of homes, they've got a good reputation. If that office is good enough for them, then it's good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's all pre, hey, sign with me. I'll give you my free YouTube course and I'll give you my value stack and all that garbage. The reality is I think most agents just want to sell more real estate next year. They'd like, and the truth is that most agents, if they focused on trying to recruit 3 or 4 people, would spend a lot of time, have little success because recruiting doesn't work, and they would likely distract themselves from their core business to the point that it might actually hurt their business.
Mm-hmm.
Where in reality, I think the idea that everyone could join one of these brokerages, recruit a bunch of people, and just live off of passive income a few years down the road, I think that story's been told so long that people now see through it. They realize that it's just not true for most people. And so what they actually want is a place where they can save some money, where it's a fair deal for themselves, where they're going to get access to great training and technology, and where they can get the support and the community around them to hopefully go out, improve their skills, and sell 4 or 5 more homes next year.
Yeah.
Selling 4 or 5 homes next year will change most families' financial futures versus recruiting 2 or 3 agents.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the agent is focused on creating content that it shows that they are actively selling real estate and that they are part of a team and that they're doing something that other agents want to emulate, that is the best way to attract. So
Yeah.
even now that I earn likely 8 or 9 times the income from revenue share that I do from my team, and my team sells a lot of real estate. But I continue to show up in those videos, create content, run my team because I only got here because of selling real estate publicly.
Yeah.
If agents want to attract more agents, it's how do you become an ambassador for the brokerage, for yourself, for your community? How do you sell real estate publicly? And how do you do so and hopefully do so humbly? And then if you can do those things, you will find that people will just like that's what they really want. Like
Yeah.
they don't want to pose in front of supercars on the internet and be rev share famous. I think most people realize, hey, I'm probably not going to be that person.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what are you really trying to build? And for me, I think that's been a real sort of secret to me continuing to have success in the attraction side of things.
Yeah.
I will also say people like you, Raquel, who are a complete leader and who lead like with a servant leader mindset and who show up for their people.
Mm-hmm.
What's as you're building your network and as I've built mine, I would say we might have 16,000 agents at this brokerage. There might be 90,000 over at a brokerage like EXP. The reality is that there's just a handful of people that make themselves available
Mm-hmm.
to the people in their worlds. And I have a network that's almost the largest at the brokerage, and I'm one of the most available. It's my availability, not my ability, that has made me really successful. I just try to be in service of as many people as possible. I'm just trying to be useful on this
Yeah.
planet. And so I think when people see that and feel that, they don't need me to sell them on joining Real.
Yeah.
What they want to do is they want to be a part of something that they can feel good about. Most people would like to make more money, but not at all costs. They
Right.
would like to make more money if they could feel proud about how they did it.
Yeah.
And revenue share is something where when I get that check, it is literally that it is the efforts of thousands of agents taking time away from their families to work in the evenings, show homes on the weekends, to go out in snowstorms, negotiate on behalf of their clients. Like it is such a responsibility
Mhm.
that it feels to me like the agents that understand that it is only a reward and a responsibility for building a brokerage that's worthy of an agent putting their trust and their business in that brokerage's hands. That's what it really is. And so if we can build the brokerage that's worthy of that, then we'll likely earn the byproduct of revenue share, the reward for doing something that actually really helps people. And so I think that's been a part of my success because all the people in my world that are successful are people that share that mindset.
Yeah. And with success, there's always lessons, right? So
Yeah.
as you look back in your journey, what are some of the lessons you wish you would have known sooner?
You know what? I think the biggest mistake I made in my life is very early on in my career. I was on a sole mission to just sell, and I didn't understand why I would want to go to a conference or why I'd want to go to an event if it was just all realtors there.
Mhm.
I didn't want to go into the office because I'm like, well, it's just all realtors there. Why would I go there when I could be working with, if there was clients there, I would go. And so I probably had, and even though I guess most people would say, well, you've done a lot in 6.5, 7 years, Brad, but I would say I didn't understand the power of aligning with great people. I didn't understand the power of slowing down with my own little selfish agenda and getting to know more people and networking and those relationships. Once I started to see the power of it, I went all in on it. I just wanted to be in the conversation. I wanted to be in the room. I wanted to be useful. I wanted to be a part of it. Everything in my business changed at that point in time. And I see this now from I've the privilege of looking back, and I see some agents make a move to brokerages like this. Some have success, some don't. And I realize that a lot of the people that don't have success, that have been successful in other aspects of their business, especially, but maybe not as much where they want to be yet in attraction, it's almost usually tied to ego. You're really good at this one thing in your life, and it's going to take now a whole different set of skills and understanding to be strong in this other side. And it might mean that you suck for a while, that you lose some opportunities. It might mean that you have something to learn still.
Yeah.
And those that just show up without their ego, they learn so many lessons in those first few calls. And then they start to adapt and they start to grow. They start to realize, I thought this was going to be my strength, but this is actually the thing that's really resonating.
Mhm.
And so when I have an attraction call with an agent now, I've had that call probably 1,200 times. So if I see you starting to look towards your phone, I'm like, this is not resonating. If I'm
Yeah.
starting to share a story with someone and I don't yet know even why they're on the call, I've made a big mistake. I'm not there in service of them. I'm in service of me just telling my stories and stuff. So I apologize for talking so much on this
No.
podcast, but I guess that's the purpose of a
Yeah.
podcast. Talk. Uh,
Yeah.
but I just find that you start to learn the beats and the moments and the things that you should maybe dig into and the things that you should peel away from. But if you're ever on a call with an agent and they're really looking for a great home for their business and their team, and you start to talk about revenue share and it's not something that's important to them, it's the first time that you've communicated that you've not heard them or understood them.
Mhm.
And so, how do you hear and understand anyone unless you've been quiet and curious enough, long enough to actually hear why they're on that call?
Yeah.
What I've realized is many people were very cautious around the topic. They're like, no, I just want to sell real estate. I want to come over, just do that. And so I'm not sure if real's right for me because I don't know if I would join otherwise if I'm not really interested in the revenue share component. And I tell people, I'm like, look, if you want any of these brokerages to be successful, like any of these brokerages, like
Mhm.
85 to 88% of all agents will never attract one person to the brokerage.
Right.
So at Real, if we build a brokerage around revenue share, we're building a false promise.
Yeah.
However, if we all focus on building for the 85 to 88%, if we build the best brokerage for everyone, if there was no revenue share involved, like the best brokerage for the person that never recruits anyone, now we've got something. Now we have something that actually serves agents. And so I think that has been the focus of our leadership is to continue to build products and a better value for agents, regardless of whether or not there was a revenue share model. And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm excited about.
You dropped a lot of nuggets today and absolute fire. Where can people connect with you?
You can find me over on Instagram at the real Brad McCallum. And in the coming days, you'll be able to find me on YouTube at a new YouTube channel that's for agents, helping them build their YouTube channels, helping them build their personal brands. And it's called Brand It Like Brad. And it is, I actually told Ryan Serhant that's what I was going to name it before he named his book, Brand It Like Serhant. So I'm just going to stick with it. I don't care. I don't care if it's the same name. But yeah, you can find me over there. And I've got a new podcast dropping called Brand It. And it's the Brand It. And hopefully you will soon get to be a guest. And everyone in my audience can learn how they can brand it like Raquel Quinet.
Oh, I love it. And as we wrap up, there's always one question that I ask every guest on
Oh
the
no.
show
You should have
is
told me at first.
what does Brad do to play bigger in business or in life?
Tell you what, I every day I wake up and I just try to discover who I could be,
Mm.
right? I just don't know. Like when I started, I thought I had no real future and that I'd somewhat failed my family for the life I wanted to give them. Now I'm just open to it all. I don't know what life would look like, maybe post real. I don't, but I feel now like almost anything is really possible. And so yeah, I think that's what it is. I'm just open to it. I've stopped saying that it's not for me, that I would never be the guy, that I wouldn't be chosen, or that I'm not worthy. Even though I don't believe that I'm worthy of any of it,
No.
I just think that it's something that agents oftentimes are like, video's not for me. I could never do what you do. I could never do this or that. I couldn't be on stages. And we put these limits on ourselves that are unnecessary. And I think we're all capable of a lot more.
So well said. And I want to say thank you so much for being on our show. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And I can't wait to keep supporting you in playing bigger, my friend.
Oh, you're the best, Raquel.